Did you know that one of my companions was addicted to alcohol and never stopped? If something happened, you wouldn't believe it. Our story today is very different. So before we begin, I've got a simple snack ready for you because we're getting into the later years. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. How are you all? May you always be well. Today, the truth is, I tried to delve deeper into the story and research the account of the companion who was addicted to alcohol. It was a bit of a shock to me while I was researching because we always assume that the companions, may God be pleased with them, are infallible, but we forget. The companions were ultimately human, so our story today is a bit sensitive. Malik ibn Habib al-Thaqafi, may God be pleased with him, who was also known as Abu Mahjan, was addicted to khamr, a type of alcoholic beverage, not only after his conversion to Islam but even before. His children will stipulated that they be buried near a grapevine, and grapes were a key ingredient in khamr production. Abu Mahjan converted to Islam, but his alcoholism didn't stop. On the contrary, it increased more and more. He couldn't control himself to the point that every time the prescribed punishment was carried out on him, he would go back and repeat the same thing, and they would carry out the punishment on him again. To the point that one of the companions said, "May God curse you! How often we bring you here and carry out the punishment on you!" But at that moment, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, looked at this companion with a look that made him wish the earth would split open and swallow him up. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to this companion, "Do not curse him, for he loves God and his messenger." This is what was known about Ibn Mahjan. He was very generous, even in his extreme poverty. He loved giving. It was known that if he entered the market and saw something he liked, he would give it to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, whether it was clothing or food. This seller would haggle with the buyer until he lowered the price. Once they agreed, the seller would take him to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and ask the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to pay for the goods, out of his intense love for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Abu Mahjan was known for his exceptional bravery. In battles, he was like a child entering a party. In short, a very brave man. Death had a story behind it. He was very well known for his bravery, even before Islam. He loved battle, and it wasn't just him. Most of the companions were like that. But he was somewhat famous. Abu Mahjan was also a poet, and he has a very famous poem, which is the poem, "Don't ask people about my wealth and its abundance." People ask about my resolve and my character. The people know that I am one of their leaders. If the army is in disarray, I will ride into the fray, my troops unfurled, and I will keep the secret. In it, the blow to the neck is given its due. And the spearman, I water him with my own blood, abstaining from demands I cannot attain, even if I am wronged, harboring intense hatred and resentment. I may be generous, though I have no means of support, and I may attack behind the lightning-fast eye. I abandon actions that bring sin and disgrace, and I refrain from speech that draws me closer to ruin. A man may be in hardship for a time, yet he is generous, and the grazing livestock of the foolish and incapable may return. Wealth will increase one day after it has been scarce, and wood will flourish after it has dried up. One day, the Muslims went out to the Battle of Qadisiyah, and at that time Abu Mahjan was very enthusiastic, but unfortunately he was drunk. He went out to fight, and was very enthusiastic, but Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. He was the army commander, and when he saw him in this state, he was drunk. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas became extremely angry, to the point that the punishment he received was very severe. The harshest punishment could have been for Abu Mahjan, who had prevented him from fighting. He was tied up in one of the army's tents. At that time, there was great sadness. Of course, in those days, when armies met, each army had its own tents. They would fight, and when night fell, they would return to their tents. That was the nature of warfare. Abu Mahjan was tied up in one of the Muslim tents on the day the Muslims went out to fight. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was on the mountain watching the battle. This came at the wrong time. Saad ibn Abi Waqqas was on a mountain watching the battle, and hadn't participated because of chafing on his thigh from fighting and riding horses. Saad ibn Abi Waqqas had a horse named Al-Balqa, which was tied up near the tents. The fighting intensified, and the sounds of swords and horses reached Abu Mahjan, who was deeply saddened. Saad ibn Abi Waqqas' wife, Salma, may God be pleased with her, was also present. So he called out her name, and Lin heard Abu Mahjan and went to him. The first thing he said to her when she entered was, "Untie me, please. I can't sit like this." But she refused. He tried several times, but she refused. So he said to her, "Listen, if I die, you'll be rid of me. Abu Mahjan is dead. But if I survive, I promise I'll come back and tie myself up again." Salma sat thinking about the matter, and at that moment he recited these verses. "It is enough sorrow that the horses are thrown into the canal, and I am left bound in chains. If I rise, the iron will restrain me, and I will be hung by a rope that will deafen the caller. I was once wealthy and had many brothers, but they have left me alone, without a friend. How fortunate I am on the day I leave bound, and my family and men are distracted from me. We were prevented from the fierce war, and the deeds of others appeared on that day. By God, I have a covenant that I will not break, that if relief comes, I will not visit the taverns." Salma responded to these verses, saying, "I have chosen God and accepted his covenant with you." She then released him from his bonds. He went out, veiled himself, looked at Saad ibn Abi Waqqas' white horse, mounted it, took a spear with it, and entered among the armies. Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, looking down from the mountain, said, "This is an angel from heaven. This is the fighting of a natural person. This is a brave man. We have never seen such a person before." Even the companions believed he was an angel. This was normal. During the Battle of Badr, they saw people they had never seen before, and they knew that angels were fighting alongside him. They thought that Abu Mahjan was fighting with an angel from heaven, but Saad ibn Abi Waqqas was observing closely, and was very close to his horse. The movements of the cavalry resembled those of the Balqa tribe, so he said, "These are the movements of the Balqa, and this bravery is strange to Abu Mahjan." He had a strong belief that Abu Mahjan had broken free and fought in the cause of God. So Saad ibn Abi Waqqas and the army returned to the tents, and at that time Salama, may God be pleased with her, asked Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, "How was your fighting today?" He told her that he had seen one of God's soldiers, and how bravely this soldier fought. Of course, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas had a suspicion at the time that it was Abu Mahjan, but he wasn't certain. He said, "By God, if I weren't certain that it was Abu Mahjan, I would have said it was Abu Mahjan because I have a suspicion." Salama, may God be pleased with her, said, "It is Abu Mahjan. I have untied him." She told her the story of what happened to her, and how he vowed to God that he would never go near wine again. At that moment, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas wept, shedding tears, and said, "Release him and bring him to me." This was the story of Abu Mahjan. One day, Abu Mahjan came, and Saad ibn Abi Waqqas said to him, "By God, I hope to God that I will not have to punish you for drinking wine after today." Abu Mahjan replied, "By God, I will never drink wine after this day." This was the story of Abu Mahjan. May God be pleased with him. If you enjoyed this story, please support me in any way you can, whether it's with a like, a subscription, or anything else. And that's all. Thank you.